Hello, everybody. This is Marco Ciappelli, and today I have Marco as a guest, and I think this is the first. I had some Italian guests on my other show, on this show, I believe, and on Redefining Society. I talk about technology with Italians, but we do talk in English. And today I am Marco hosting Marco from the Netherlands. Marco, I'm not even going to try to tell you pronounce your last name. I'm going to let you do that. But I know how to pronounce correctly the name. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So how is the pronunciation of your last name? Den Berg Scholten?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Scholten.
Okay. You got that.
Our CH is a little bit here, throaty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an Arabic really strong.
Okay.
It's Scholten. Just and Van den Berg, you did that perfectly.
Van den Berg, yeah. We were talking about soccer of the old school with, I heard the Van den a lot. It's very common. But listen, so today we are on Audio Signals, and we, as the audience know, we talk about stories, storytellers, and storytelling in general. And you have an interesting story because you were telling me a hiatus from what your profession is, which you're going to tell us about a little bit, and you end up writing a book that I understand you had in your head for a long time. Now, I have a problem too. The difference is that I haven't written it yet. It's still in my head. So let's start with a little bit about you and how you ended up actually writing a book, and then there is a lot of topics that we can touch on in this half an hour.
Wonderful. Okay, well, the thing is, I grew up. I'm born 1965, so I'm part of what they say is Generation X.
Me too.
I think you too, yes. And I grew up, in the period when communism was defeated in the world. But also I know you also studied political philosophy. I think I read that somewhere. It was also the period of postmodernism, which really told us there are no eternal values, value relativism. And I found it very hard growing up studying how to find my place in this new landscape, how to find meaning in pursuing something that would be meaningful for me. And I really only had two options. I loved the game of basketball. I got the virus when I was 11, and it never left me. It's still in me. And I loved literature and philosophy, a little bit history also. And so I was trying to find my place that way as a basketball player, but then I got injured when I was very young, when I was still in the military, and I could not play. So I tried to become a writer. So in 1990, when I was 25, still in the end of my studies, studying history, I made a synopsis of a novel of the typical things of our generation. I felt it was kind of a symbolic novel. But at the same time, you need to work. So I became a basketball coach by chance. I was injured, and then I was asked to be assistant coach in the top league in the Netherlands, which is not a great league. It's not like anything in Italian basketball or anything, but still it's a professional league. And then I became a professional coach just because people kept asking me. And in the beginning of this career pathway, I thought it's great to be a basketball coach and I have time to write, but this is impossible. You can't write a novel that I wanted to write when you have to take breaks from the process of constructing the novel. Of course, I had the frame ready, I had the synopsis and the 30 chapters ready, but I found I'm either a basketball coach or I'm an author. So I became a basketball coach until 2004, relatively successful with the championship and success in Europe. Actually, we played in Reggio Emilia, beat them. Yeah, and in Bologna, lost, but that's the basketball city in Italy for the American viewers. And then I took a year off because the book did not leave my head. And I had saved money to take the year off. So what I did is write the novel that was in my head. And after 6 months of writing the novel, I put it to the side, and I wrote it in my mother tongue, the Dutch, the Nederlands, the Dutch language. I put it to the side, and I just didn't like it. I did not get the tone right. For me, this is the crucial part in interesting literature. You have to have the right tone. So I went on to become a coach again until 2021. So fast forward 15 years, almost 16. And I'm working in Germany, and I get into a conflict with my employer. And in Germany, the labor laws are very strict. So he did not want me to coach anymore, but he still had to pay me for a full season. So then I had to write, I started writing it in English, my stepmother's tongue. And I liked it from the start. So interestingly, you said you have a book in your head. This book was in my head for 30 plus years. And when I finally wrote it, the original framework did not change. The 30 chapters, of course, I'm a different person after 30 years. But the tone and the feeling and the message, well, message is the wrong word, but the implications of the book came across just like I wanted to. It's very rewarding. So those 2 years, 1 year writing it, then you need a year to get it published and to do all the things that go around it, publish, editing, picking a cover, the whole process. Took me another year. And now it's out there. Everybody can buy it. And I'm going back into basketball coaching. But it's very rewarding to have it out. It was absolutely necessary. It would have been one of those things when I would be on my deathbed and I hadn't done it, I would be like, oh man, why did I not do that? You know?
Yeah. And I think when you write something, philosophically speaking, or at a human level, you kind of leave something. I don't want to go dark into somebody's die, but I mean, it's like if you're a musician and your song is being played after you're passed, and your book, your story is being read, or your paint is being seen. It's a part of you that you leave for future generations. So I think for some people, it may be a very big and important goal in life. I mean, of course, leaving a market as a coach or basketball, that's another thing. But I don't know. For me, a book is a testament to what you believe in and what is in your head. And so let's go into that, because so we connected on one of these podcast connection website where they match making, and I was away from it for a very long time. Actually, I started and I never really looked at it because I get a lot of requests to be on the show. I went away, I came back, and I'm like, oh, there is 150 requests to be on.
Really?
Your show. I have the 2 shows there, and I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so as you know, I apologize for not replying too quickly. But when I saw you were kind of like not challenging me, but you disagree on something that I guess I wrote on the introduction of this actual podcast, which is about storytelling, but it talks about technology a little bit. And when I saw the synopsis of your book on Amazon, I'm like, okay, I kind of see where you want to go with this. So I like for you to give me a tiny bit of your book, which starts, I understand, with the coming down of the Berlin Wall. Again, I'm a Generation X myself, I believe that. And how you got this thought about, I don't agree exactly with what Marco is saying about technology. Let's go and talk about it. So
wonderful. Well,
let's do that.
The deepest, let's say, layer of the book conveys a sense of loneliness, because the narrator, who's not necessarily the protagonist, but he's the narrator, is the one who's trying to find his place and having a hard time. And he comes from an old blue blood family with old traditions that were really going out of style once, let's say, the capitalist victory put society in overdrive and
Okay.
put the capitalist dogmas into overdrive. And he was like, okay, where do I land with my, old world values? A little bit like Il Gatto Pardo.
Oh, I was just thinking about that.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And that's
Leave everything as it is. No, change everything so you can leave it as it is. That's what's the
yes.
idea there.
And I see so he sees a lot of trouble ahead because the moral landscape that was the foundation, it's of course based on Judeo-Christianity in our culture, in our Western society. And if you go back further, maybe even on the Greeks, I would say that would be my foundation. They eroded, and in place was this, John Locke philosophy of every man is an individual and he's selfish and he's rational, and this is the best way to get a society going. And for him, the narrator of the story, but actually also for me, this is very hollow, because if you have no deeper foundation, you kind of lose the connection that we all still have with life, with the connecting part. Of course, we talk and we exchange views on a rational level, but if you limit human beings to rationality only, I believe it loses kind of its soul. And this is the danger that I feel our society has come into now. And I see the movement of technology and becoming more and more not a master of technology, but being mastered by technology as part of this process. And I have that from Heidegger, of course. He warns the world that technology is not necessarily bad, and I agree with that. I think it's just a tool. Mm-hmm. But if it closes people off from this deeper connection with, first of all, the tradition that you are part of, life, human life, and robotizes men without them really applying all the parts of intelligence, I think humanity is in great danger. And we're seeing the results of it now. Everywhere, fascists are coming back to the fore. War is lurking again around the corners in Europe. If the European Union is going to fall apart, which is what Russia wants, these countries will fight each other again. In America, where you're living now, to put America first and foremost is very dangerous. So people are withdrawing away from the connection, which I think is part of our natural talent to keep the connection going. I'm not saying I'm a socialist, I'm not. But I do believe we have to find ways to open up humanity toward the good again. And if you don't have a moral foundation, it's just, Lockean, Adam Smithian selfishness and rationality. I think the door is closing fast. This is the theme of the loneliness of the narrator. And I put him in an old family that you could put in 1900 in Il Gatto Pardo, for example. Mm-hmm. I did that on purpose because I wanted to make the contrast stronger. And I wanted to convey his sense of loneliness because he did not see a way out yet. And he saw all that idiocy that is happening now. He saw that coming.
So you see the old world values that are part of this story. I was reading, again, not the old book, which I would love to read, but he finds himself, this character, in between a world that is changing and find a place in it, and now seeing the structure that he grew up with, the moral and the kind of world. But here's my perspective, is that we always been changing. There's always been a group of people, usually the one in the power, the nobility or the oligarchs or whatever it is. Coming from political science, I know that the extreme on the political spectrum, they touch each other. You can go all the way left, all the way right. You're going to end up more or less in a dictatorship, whatever color that is. So the way I see it is that there is always a constant willing and process of changing from a certain part of usually the majority, and the desire to stay where you are in the status quo because it's a nice and comfortable status quo from the nobility or the leaders or the politician or the power and so on. So in a way, I see it, I don't see ever society eventually stalling into something that is so solid there. But I do agree that the moral value, it doesn't matter if we're using generative AI or machine in the Industrial Revolution, we do need the moral value to actually control where we're going with this. I mean, AI, we talk about guardrails. The European community has the AI Act, and we don't really know what to do with this new technology, to be honest. So we need to go to the philosopher, the ethicist, and the people that never been part of the conversation about technology, that now they actually are coming back and very strong, because we do need people like you that make us think, and people like them. So I don't know where I'm going with this is it's not simple, and that's probably why your character is struggling so much.
Well, yes. I did not say that he does not understand, or I do not understand, that change is inevitable, because it's logical. People invent new things, find new laws of the universe. I mean, what a revolution was the quantum revolution, if you think about it. Or even, if we talk mathematics, the Boolean revolution, ones and zeros, which is basically what all this technology is based on. But we have to remember that change is good if you don't lose a sense of good and evil. And what carries a framework? Cultures are different, but what carries a framework for good and evil? It's always a transcending philosophy. It could be Christianity, it could be... Look, in your country, in Italy, there's a real strong regression into old Christian family values. President Maloney is really, making a big theme of this, huh? I'm not saying that's a good thing, and neither is my old world narrator, but because he comes from such a sound moral basis also, he feels that the new change lacks this foundation from where you can safely exploit change, which should always be a moral foundation on which society rests. And Nietzsche, Nietzsche, of course, as somebody who did political science also, he said famously that we killed God. Well, let that be the case, but we need a new narrative to have a foundation to be able to deal with all these new technologies.
Yeah,
it's not the only reason, by the way, he feels lonely, because intelligence, to me, you, in preparation for this podcast, you sent very interesting questions, I felt.
Yeah,
and one is,
let's try to go there. Yeah, because I think we agree on the fact that you call it the moral value. For me, is about staying human and being
very
human,
good.
which is exactly the same thing, right? I mean, be able to distinguish good and evil. They're not value that you use to conserve society the way you want to. It's just to live in a society where, maybe you have to renegotiate a social contract because things have changed, but you still need that social contract. So that humanity, it needs to be there, or it's going to be chaos and the end of it.
Yes, and one of the characteristics I feel of our generation is we were the first generations where all the guardrails of what was still acceptable in behavior were just thrown off. People could just go and do whatever they want, basically. All taboos left the public sphere. It was free for all. And also in greed. I don't know if you remember the movie Wall Street, Oliver Stone, where the Michael Douglas character keeps propounding greed is good, greed is good.
Yeah.
That was also a symptomatic, I feel, of that time. No, the really good question, one of the really good questions that got me thinking is, how do you define human intelligence? And I really like that kind of question. And I define it as our species given faculty to return. Now, what the hell is that? Of course, the faculty to return, with that I mean the following. Like a wave coming out of the ocean, but also going back. Now, what did we get as humans? We got the ability, we're like a wave. Huh? We come out of life, we come out of the earth, whatever you want to call it, or we create it, but we also go back. We're temporal beings. But with that, we have gotten the faculty, the quality of recognizing what it is to stay connected to the ocean. One of those qualities that have really been developed on the Western world side is, of course, the rational quality, the ability to cognize things and to give them names and to create recognition of things. But it's not the only one. You also have intuition. You also have simple breathing. This is also part of our intelligence, and the risk we have is being so enslaved now by only a limited frame through which we use our intelligence, is that we become slaves of only this way of looking, and I think it's closing off other options. So, and I can name examples. You, as somebody who specializes in the development of cyber world, you had a field day 2 days ago, when all the airlines in the world couldn't fly. Imagine this.
CrowdStrike.
Yeah, but imagine this. How dependent have we become? Is that a good thing? I look at these children, these young girls, who are being exploited by, to me, evil people, who know how to manipulate those young brains so that they become addicted to their phones. No government in the world is doing anything about it to protect our children. Is that a change for the good? Yes, it would be, if those girls would be able to, from a moral basis, foundation, which they have gotten from the whole society, and an openness to recognizing technology is one way of approaching the world, but not the only one, and then using it from that basis, then I would say yes. But as long as we don't have the solidity to be able to use it, I find it also very dangerous.
Yeah. So I think the sentence that you got into my description is when I talk about technology that unite us.
Exactly.
But I think I'm going to explain it, what I meant by that. Because technology, of course, is a tool, like artificial intelligence and everything else. And of course, it's a tool. It depends on how you use it. The hammer, I'll say you can use it to build a home or to hammer somebody in the head. So, and that's though is a very easy excuse to say, yeah, whatever, technology is good. It's the people that use it that are bad. But in my case, it was very much connected to connecting people, right? And I was bringing it from a global perspective of uniting people by allowing people from different part of the world to share story through social media, the internet, getting on YouTube and all of that, which will be a fantastic way to use technology, right? I mean, we have a powerful computer in our hand, which is a smartphone, and a lot of people just use it to put like on social media or go on TikTok or play little games. And I'm like, you have the library of Alexandria in your head. You have the knowledge of the world. You can answer every question you want if you use your head. And you can also go and see why certain cultures, certain religions do things in a certain way. So I came to what I said at the beginning before we start recording, that I think we're all made of stories. And I think that the more we share stories, the more we could, if we open our mind and don't do America first, Italia first, or Germany first. That didn't work out very well either in the past.
But it's happening again, Mark.
I know that we don't learn from these stories, but the point is, if we all could accept more the fact that by learning about other culture and tradition, it doesn't mean we all become one culture and tradition. We just respect each other differences. And I think technology, I remember the excitement as an X, Generation X myself, when the first time I opened a computer and I was able to connect the damn modem and look the internet for the first time. The possibilities that I had in my mind, to go and search things and connect with people on the other side of the world, it didn't really go there, but it's still there.
I agree. The world, the information and the knowledge that's available through being able to go on Google or wherever, even Wikipedia, although that's of course not the equivalent of a university education. Let's be honest about that.
No.
But
No.
The University of Stanford has their entire philosophy library online for everybody to read. It's fantastic. I mean, this is a source of great knowledge sharing, which is what the world really needs.
It should be that.
I agree with you completely on this, and the fact that we can, exchange views like this, you being in LA, me being in Almere, 25 kilometers from Amsterdam, is of course something wonderful. And it's not the same as when you make a phone call and you can't see each other. I agree. It's still not the same as when we would be sitting face to face in Malibu watching the surfers. That would be even better. But
you wanna meet me there tonight?
Yes, please.
A sunset.
That's the big benefit that society can get from it. And if it were used as a tool for this, I'm all for it. I'm still all for it, and I use it myself.
Yeah.
But what is the foundation of Facebook? If you really go back, what is the
addiction?
Exactly. And what is the same with TikTok? I saw a German philosopher the other day, and he said something very interesting. This social media addiction, what we should do about is force these companies to pay the users per hour, because they're making money. So they should be paying the users a fee because they're working for them. It's a ridiculous world. And where the moral foundation to be able to do that in a positive way, good and evil, lacks, is that we don't say to people like Facebook, what you're doing is unethical. It's unethical. Or to these liars, lying has become the norm on a lot of these platforms. People can just blatantly lie. And it is slowly eroding our public norms. And this is where we should have a stronger foundation of morals. And to me, morals are always connected to our connection to life in general. Why are we destroying our own intelligence because people want to make money off of us? I mean, that's not good. And as long as we can not use the hammer for the right way, this is another Heideggerian, by the way, example. He uses that a lot. And not to bash in somebody's head. I'm all for the hammer, but I'm for the hammer anyway. I think it's a great invention. So I'm also for a Boolean technique that has helped us communicate more easily, because this is definitely true. But at the same time, it's also helped evil people who have no guardrail morally to destroy a whole generation of kids. Well, destroy is maybe a dramatic word, but we all know that a lot of, especially puber girls, and I have a daughter who's 17, have depression has gone up, suicide rates going up. They're very superficial. Their attention span is no longer than one of those average films. Those are very negative impulses to society, and we should not become slaves to that mechanism.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I had many conversations, mostly on the other podcasts, with psychologists that we talk about manipulations and during the election and the whole cycle of the bubbles of information. I mean, we can go on and just switch on the other podcast, and we should, maybe we could have this conversation over there and go a little bit deeper into these things that you're mentioning, especially if you can leave that directly throughout the experience of your daughter. I mean, you can see what's going on, and we hear this more and more. But to go back to the stories, I have two questions. One, how does your character, without giving away the end of the book, because I want people to actually read the book, does he end up resolving his situation of eventually? I mean, I can't ask you that because I'm going to ask you to tell me the book, but maybe you can tease it a little bit. What is he coping with?
I absolutely can. He recognizes that people are creatures of narration, so narrative creatures, and will be for a very long time. He recognizes that on the one side. But on the other side, he also recognizes that you can always, whatever the circumstance, meet every new situation like a Zen monk, where the thoughts are just the clouds, and if you lose them, you get the whole sky. So it's the duality of forces that confront each other that he recognizes, and he comes to peace, a little bit to peace with the fact. He writes the book 30 years after he has it in his head, which is literally what I did, with the fact that even though if times are difficult, in a moral sense, and he really misses the moral foundation, and he's no longer a Christian. He can't believe in it anymore because of actually the technological advances also in science. They just have become incompatible for him too. So he's also yearning for a new, let's say, spiritual foundation for his morals. But he does feel what's right and what's wrong because he's gotten a strong foundation from his family. But he does recognize that humans will remain creatures of narrative for a very long time. It's just that we need to find a way to remain open to the differences in narratives and meet not with being a junkie of the words that you use, but sometimes just be able to let them go. Yeah. And there's like a little philosophical, how do you say, aeroplane ride to the other side of the world, to Japan and to Tibet, to the Buddhist.
Okay.
Because I believe that the spiritual traditions have work to do as well in these times. They have to meet not on a narrative level, but underneath the narrative, they have to meet what is good and what is evil. And they have to give that to the world. Instead of fighting each other on interpretation on narrative level, they have to find each other on a spiritual level. I think that's also where humanity is as a big opening. And being open, the facility to return, the wave is always in contact with the ocean, is where the answer lies.
Very, very deep, and I think it's not just the name that we have in common. We have a lot of vision. I have a lot of interest in. I love Japan. I've been there a couple of times, and
wonderful.
I love the whole Shinto, that everything has a soul, the Taoism, and all of that. I'm not an expert in it, but I'm very drawn to that more than to some deity and that is out there that they're trying to convince me. And there is a very delicate situation now, especially here in the United States, of really going back to the past. I feel like they're driving to go back to the Middle Age, but Marco, go back there.
The people who are so angry and so unbehagen, they say in German, I don't know if you know that word, a sense of feeling groundless in the United States, especially in the United States. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but they are following somebody who's a misogynist, who's lying the whole time, who's very, very, very respectless to his counterparts, who's bringing civility to a lower level. And still, a lot of people are following this man to be their leader. And this Unbehagen in the USA is also because the old religion doesn't have the answers anymore in the new times. There has to come a new narrative. But what does he do? He plays in, this is my, armchair psychologist, basketball coach, I'm not saying, but this is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people feel so groundless, they are clamping back at something that at least they knew from the past. It's not there anymore, and actually, it's been, discredited by science. So what do? Oh well, the science is a lie. Those are all left people who are elite, and we will get them. And he's playing into that fear. And this is exactly wrong. This is exactly the mistake, the narrative mistake. Open to new developments, but do it from a moral basis. Because the things that this president has said and has done, and he got elected, about what he said about women, but he's lying, he's cheating, he's everything that I, as a basketball coach, teach my players not to do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And still they follow him. That means the moral thresholds have fallen away, and people are just falling down, and they don't care. I think it's the same source of cultural problem that we have. But going back is not the answer.
Yeah. No, I think it all reconnects to what we were before, when we kind of went into the social media and justifying the fact that there is no recognition anymore about what is true, what is not true. There is no way to, I mean, it's almost like, well, if it's on the newspaper, if it's said on TV, it must be true. If it's on the internet, it must be true. And if it's somebody say, but we are at the point where I think a lot of people know that it is a lie.
Exactly.
But they have the right to believe in a lie. And I think we can piss off a lot of people here if we go there. But, that's an example. It could be a religion. It could be any cult that you follow, in this case too. And just refuse reality, which will be another conversation on what is reality versus non-reality.
No.
But you know what I would...
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
This is exactly my point. The reality always meets you. You have your senses, it comes. This is what we do now as reality. If we start making the wrong narrative without the foundation of right and wrong, or good and evil, then it becomes a lie. And this is very dangerous for humanity.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I talk about reality, I'm thinking about the quantum science that you mentioned before, where we're really going deep to that. We actually kind of make up the world around us from a scientific point of view. But as far as what we know is real and not real, when you don't accept reality as something that is tangible, as you say, something that you see that come in your face, and you just close your eyes and put your head under the sand, and or like the monkey, right, that cover the ear and their mouth and don't want to hear, don't want to see, don't want to talk. Yeah, we have a big problem. And I want to wrap this conversation because I feel like you said that we are a creature of narrative. And I think that we are on a podcast about stories. We talked about a lot of other things, and we're telling a story, my perspective, your perspective, very similar. But I think we agree that when we share stories, we need to share stories that help us to give the next generation a moral and virtues. And I write short stories for kids with my mom that are very magical and fantastical and enchanted. But at the end, we always want to put a moral that teach a value to kids, because I'm like you. I come from that generation. I grew up without the internet. I grew up with, the classic books and all of this. And I'm not saying that all the kids nowadays, they're not like this, because there are many that are reading and learning, and thank God, or whatever, thankfully they're following the steps that we need to move forward in the future generation, and they're not so shallow and so ungrounded, as you mentioned, what you see happening now. So I think the value of stories, real good stories, are really important. And I hope that people that listen to this conversation, as I like to say, now they have more questions in their head than answers, because I'm not pretending to give answers, but I like to make people think. And I think a good story, that's what it does. A good book, you close it and you're like, Oh, wow. Okay. I got some thinking to do here. And I hope we gave this to the listeners and they may be interested in your book and learning a little bit more about that. And I don't know, if I read the book and it's good, I'm going to come and tell you that you need to get another hiatus from teaching basketball and write,
Well,
another book. You could, right?
I'm actually pretty far on my second one because I had some time before I started.
There you go.
And this one, first one was loneliness, and then now I tackle freedom.
Okay, so you always have this driver that is a very philosophical in terms of know yourself type of.
Well, isn't that one of the great things about human intelligence, that we can really learn about life?
Yeah.
More than how we've been programmed and started out.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the worthwhile things? You start where you start, but that doesn't mean that you have to end there. That's the whole process.
Yep.
So yes, and I learn every day from great thinkers, and also from people who are asking questions like yourself. I think it's very worthwhile.
Yeah.
And we should fight not to become robots. I think this is one of our main tasks.
Well, I think we should have robots to expand our world or our view, but we don't want to certainly become robots. And maybe come back and we talk about robots and artificial intelligence, and we see where we go with that. How about that?
I think that's the wrong term.
Oh, artificial intelligence. Whomever come up with that, it got it both wrong. Artificial and intelligence. So let's have another conversation about that.
I would love that.
We'll close it here. I want to thank you. I want to thank all the people listening. I hope we didn't go in too many places, but I truly enjoyed. I mean, I'm happy that I do this for a living and I get to meet so many interesting people like yourself, Marco. And let's stay in touch. And for everybody listening, I'll put on the notes the link to to Marco's website, to the book, and so you can actually read it and get in touch with Marco or with Marco, whatever you like, and subscribe, stay tuned, share, and if you have some comments, let me know. Put it on LinkedIn or social media, wherever you are, and maybe we'll address those in the next conversation that hopefully I will have with Marco again. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.